people
When
do.
there are people doing music, I gotta like do some little dance, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
we're on stage. Okay.
All right, everybody, welcome to this unexpectedly delicious and beautiful for no particular reason. I am the host, Kerri Lewis, alongside with my host, Yanko, who just disappeared. But that's okay, guys, because I now have two other people showing up in this beautiful space of love, energy, and connection. So thank you guys for showing up, and let's get this party started.
Yes.
All right.
Party.
Yanko, are you still unable to be heard? Let's see. Yep. So we're reading Yanko's lips today, and I'm not good at that. So we're going to just let him play around with technology for a little bit. But something that, came up right before we went live, we were in initializing, and I just started humming to I don't even Jeopardy, I think. And Alex immediately jumped in and just started dancing. And I was like, yes, I love this. And this is all about flow and just being authentic and yourself so that way we can be in flow. So I would love to get you guys' thoughts on what flow means for you.
Hmm. Nice. Well, since I was dancing, I'm gonna give my thoughts on what the flow is. You know, being in the moment, being in the now, and I think we all have that part of ourselves, this ego mind part of ourselves that wants to always self doubt and censor ourselves. You know, all these patterns from childhood saying what's proper behavior, what isn't, and just like pushing that aside or just kind of moving gently through it and just doing what you're gonna do. It's what the flow is, and when you're not like I gotta think about this stuff, you know, you're not be planning it, just living.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. Um, and interestingly enough, something you said, for the longest time I thought on my spiritual journey, one day I would be free from those limiting thoughts, those like old patterns of thinking. And as I continue to show up more and more in love, I realize it's not that I don't have them, I just don't give them power. Like I
Yeah.
witness them, and then I still continue to do what feels really good for me rather than what sometimes my ego tells me I need to be doing. And, I don't know if I will ever be able to get rid of those thoughts, but I give myself permission to just show up and dance if I'm called to dance. And that's where you and I align so much with what flow kind of means for us. What about you, Radavi?
When you were talking about thoughts, and there comes a time when we feel more that we're in a divine state, that thoughts is not important. Those thoughts, we no longer identify with those thoughts. And so it's yes. So what is flow for me? When I wake up in the morning, when I feel that sense of my heart, I'm in my heart. And there's a feeling of expansion, or I don't know what word to call it, but I'm not in my identification. There's no identification. It's just
Oh,
a feeling of gratitude and happiness. Then I know it comes from a deeper place within me. That is when I am flowing in the right direction.
beautiful.
So so I have a question though, because I get that, right? That makes sense to me. And yet, I look at all these people who at one point in my life, I don't so much now because of where I am, but at one point would have been like, okay, they are the person I need to look to because they're this not spiritual guru, but they've done it, right? They've either achieved Kundalini experience or whatever. But as I continue to bear witness to people in this space, I'm really trying to grapple with this because you still have the egoic thoughts. Am I incorrect on this?
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, thoughts that come that could be disturbing because they're flying by all the time, and there's memories in here, and we read about some chaotic thing happening out in the world, and it brings up a thought. But when it brings up a thought, to me, it's observation. I'm observing this thought.
Yeah.
I'm not involved in the thought. I don't have an emotional charge. So that's the difference to me.
Yeah, that is so, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's where that's a space I live in a lot, not always. Trust me, my ego gets the best of me more than I would like. But I guess, for so long on my own path, I just had this idea that, oh, one day I'm going to be free from any thought other than love. And as I continue to get more connected, so to speak, in love, I realize I don't know that that's ever going to be the case. I'm just not going to attach like a
Yeah.
judgment or a story around that thought. I just simply witness that thought. So,
Yeah, it's okay, at least for me, to have those thoughts. You're going to have them, they're going to be there. But the difference is that you are not those thoughts. That's the detachment and being able to observe them, to be able to use them. Because I think being in this state of just perpetual love and bliss with not a single other thought all the time wouldn't necessarily be that fun or productive. You can have access to all that ego stuff, but it's not you.
Mhm.
I know in the third season of Space God coming up, I have this line that the character learns during this meditation. It's not all about meditation, but it is, in your mind are notions like waves in an ocean. Watch them float by, but stick to your devotion. And that's on a meditation on the virtue of detachment that he learns. And
Very nice.
oh,
Very
I
good.
could drop her right there. We can go home now. Conversation's over. No, but that, I mean, I think that's helpful for our audience, right? Or at least for me, it would have, I mean, we all have our journey, and obviously, I'm exactly where I am because of all of the steps. But I think for so long, I would get hung up on, oh my God, I'm doing all of this. Like, I'm sitting in love, but I still am having these thoughts that, like, whatever. And even though I don't attach to them, I'm not supposed to have these thoughts. And so, for anybody out there who, is on a path to really just being loved, because ultimately that's my understanding of this human experience, right? Is just that we are all love, much like Radaviv speaks about all the time. But that you still have the humanity. Like we are a human being, and with that comes ego regardless. It's just, are you going to, follow the rabbit hole of what your thought is, it where it's taking you, or are you just going to observe it and not attach to that thought? So thank you so much, you guys, for that clarity. Yanko, were you able to talk yet?
Yeah, I was going to ask what has happened to Yanko.
We don't know.
Oh,
Yanko's the silent observer today, Radaviv.
well, he's in silence.
Yep. So what would you beautiful people who have so generously blessed me with your presence, and Yanko with your presence today, like to talk about? What's coming up for you?
hmm. Well,
How about now? Can you hear me now?
yes.
Oh,
Don't
finally,
we
I can join
know?
the party.
Speaking of that, he's back.
Ah, yes. I
He's
hope
back
I'm sounding
in
okay.
battle again. Okay, I'm done.
Nice.
Well,
Ooh.
well, thank you. It's nice to hear all that wonderful information that came through. Alex was wonderful. I loved it. Like I wanted to say something about it, but I couldn't. And hopefully, I'm not ruining the moment now.
No, you are the moment now.
Exactly. That's right. So, yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on flow, or you want to pivot?
You know, uh,
Go ahead.
I wanted to say something really fast.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Um, from my book, because I got messages from the essence of our soul.
Cool.
The essence of our soul is that light of awareness. That's what we really are. So the light of awareness is like, just consider that you go into the movies and there's a big screen. It has nothing on it. It's just plain nothing. And when the movie comes on, it's it's giving you a story for whatever it is, and we observe the movie, because when it's over, it has never affected the screen.
Yes.
The screen is the light of our being, it's the essence of our being. And when we recognize that the light of awareness is just being aware of everything out there, so what are we going to be attached to? So I just wanted to read, I just opened the book and wanted to read one of the messages from the essence of our being.
Cool.
The deepest, just one of them, the deepest wound was not their humankind behavior to each other, but to their behavior to others and to us, the essence, but our light being covered by their shame.
Ooh,
Oh, nice.
Yes, we no longer felt that the pure consciousness of love. We felt like everyone else.
Hmm.
And that's what it is when we really acknowledge the essence of our being. Anything can pass, come and go. We're being aware of the light through the light of our being.
Oh yeah. A lot of those things you're saying remind me a lot of philosopher Nisargadatta. He did a lot of the non-dualistic stuff, in recent years from India, and he definitely made that same metaphor with the screen. Like he said, yeah, we are that screen, that our true selves, not the movie that's broadcast on that screen, and that kind of persists whether there's a film showing or not. And also, yeah, the whole part about the shame and all that can block our view of that awareness of our true selves. Kind of makes sense. I recall him and some other philosophers making the metaphor that you'll always see the light of the sun is always there, whether a cloud is blocking it or not. That actually makes no difference on the actual light itself, just one's perception
Right.
of it.
I'm gonna take it down to, all of us have experiences. Remember, when we were born without language, we were multidimensional, and we still are.
Yeah.
We still are. And that's when the light of our awareness, we're aware of everything around us, no language. So when we have a sensation, it's because we're feeling something. Now, the language begins. We're being taught. We've been conditioned about how life should be. We're on this third dimension, and we came in with just love, to give love and to receive it back.
Hmm.
I want everybody to really remember that. We came from this essence. And so we are being trained to be something. We're being trained that we are our bodies. All of us. We have a name. We need to do this and do that to be a good person or to be loved or to be acknowledged. And that is the veil that covers over the essence of our being.
Hmm.
And I look at the four of us and who is listening here, and I said, "Oh, Ed, let's remember in this divine heart, there's something that can never ever change. We all have it, and it's that divine spark. We are like one flame, and there's a spark that comes from everything. We are one. We really are one. And if you just remember that in the world, when we see chaos happening, and there's a lot going on now, I think the light is breaking up all the dark shadows.
I
There's
agree with
light.
that.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
give thanks and remember, you're not your thought. You
But
are the light of awareness.
I want to jump in because again, I want to make this absorbable for all different levels of consciousness, right? Yanko and I talk extensively and if I heard what you were sharing maybe 10 or 12 years ago, Radaviv, it would have felt really obscure to me because I was still in the throes of like addiction and, this story that I was suffering. So, what I would like to hear from all of you guys, how did you start to release yourself from that shame, from that guilt? Because that's something I speak passionately and often on is that it is a perception, right? We get to perceive, and we don't have to attach ourselves to that shame, that guilt. But it is for me anyway. I can't speak for you guys. It was a practice and it was giving myself permission to do things differently. So I would be interested to hear from you guys how you were all able to break free from that narrative because if you look at this world as a whole, it's pretty pervasive still.
That's a good question. Who wants to go?
You know,
Well,
go Yanko.
I was gonna say, to me, it's the recognition when it comes in to be able to recognize that I'm in that state. Um, and at the beginning was more of a just observation, like I'll just sit and observe and just be with it, not judging what's going on. But then as the time went by, I came to a place of acceptance. So there is like whatever comes in, I just accept it is what is. And I don't try to suppress it or push it away or bury it down or like change it because your first thing will be to try to change whatever the situation is. Um, but then if you think like, okay, this is good or bad. I don't want to change it or I want to change it in any way, or you kind of suppress yourself, but then you're hurting yourself if you're doing that instead of accepting the situation of what's going on as is. And then if you accept that this is a flow and that's how you are, it's just a flow. So you get the acceptance, and once this happens, then the energy it's not suppressed. It just goes and you move with the flow because you're not changing it or doing anything. At least that's how it worked for me, and it still does.
Yeah, I mean that kind of makes sense. To me, it's not necessarily about just like dropping all that stuff and living in enlightenment at every moment. Like, admittedly, I still have like the shame. I still have like the parts of myself and my life that I don't love. I'm not always in this happy, blissful state. It's been a matter of becoming more aware of all that stuff and like you said, observing it. And then if you can sit with it and observe it, even while experiencing sometimes that thing, you'll realize that's not you, or that's not the entirety of you. And once you can observe it and kind of look at it, you can start to move past that. You could start to become aware that, yeah, maybe you are that little self that is suffering. You are that wounded inner child, but you're more than that. The true self extends far beyond that to different aspects of yourself and, other realities, you could say. And I think I first became aware of that through vivid dreaming as a child, through having what people would call out of body experiences, through journeying beyond and seeing all these different parts of myself, all in, you could say, parts of my psyche or other dimensions or whatever. But that little wounded stuff that will maybe still remain in a sense until you fully process it, fully realize it, and eventually fully let it go. But I think in recent years, I've been doing a lot of personal ceremony and meditation to become aware of all those parts of myself, to integrate them, and to let them go when needed. It's a continuous process, though.
Well, I want to share
Yeah.
my journey, my rough journey. Woundedness is not an uncommon thing. Feeling wounded is not an uncommon thing. So what I did was I pushed it aside as I was growing up. That's not me. As I get older, that's not me. I walked away from my wounding memories, and time something happened where I had a mystical moment when I saw my child in front of me. And I said, "Go away. I really don't connect with you. Just go." I was really not happy because I thought I've left you behind. And then she was there for several weeks until I knew I had to connect with her. I'm giving that story because it's for people to understand this. What happened is all those memories that I had inside that I'd stored away, my wounds, my imprints, all of that. I had to remove them. I had to go through an emotional healing because I call the emotions the Velcro that attaches those memories to you. And once I started to do that, the veils started to fall away. And the veils of always trying to live in inner peace. That's my book, To Awaken to Inner Peace in the Midst of Chaos. Ain't going to happen if you're always talking from your mind. To say, okay, this is here. I don't need to think about that because it will always come back. There is something within us in the emotional imprint that is going to start to push it up again, again, because there's some unhappiness in here. We can't deny it. Even if you don't feel you're wounded, there is some unhappiness because when we didn't get acknowledged, when even as a child we did something and they said, oh, you shouldn't be doing that instead of trying to explain to you. So, anyway, that's how it happened for me. So,
Hmm.
I do say the emotions, clearing the emotion is very important. I did it for 30 odd years with clients. They come and I went into the inner child wounding where the child, it was very beautiful, help for them. So what I
I
didn't. Mhm.
I love that, Radaviv. I think that that is so well put, and I've never heard it phrased exactly like that. That our emotions are the Velcro to the memory, and it's so true. And it's why I always encourage people and myself, it really doesn't matter where I am. I've been at the gym, I can be in my car, I can be at a restaurant. If I'm overcome with emotion, I just allow myself to feel that emotion. And I
Absolutely. Can't turn it back.
yeah, and I don't even ask myself why I feel it at this point, because I don't really necessarily need to know. I just know that there's something that I need to feel, and then I move through. And I think so often, and still to this day, although I do see the narrative changing a bit, is that we need to push down our emotion, that we need to just suck it up and get through it. And I think in doing that, we're actually really packing in that memory, we're packing in that suffering and not giving it, the adequate space to be seen, witnessed, and released.
There's one little piece I'd like to add to that. You talked about the restaurant. I remember a long time ago, stuff would still come up, and some inner child stuff was coming up. And of course, I was really feeling it because I'm a really an emotional person. I remember it's lunchtime, sat at the table, ordered what I want, and the meal is in front of me. And I'm feeling these emotions. And the most beautiful thing that happened is that I was shown a golden light around me. And I
Hmm,
was told that's everlasting love.
beautiful.
And this is what I really want people to know. That everlasting love will never leave until you leave this body. It's your soul essence. So that's what we are. I mean, the listeners, I really want them to know this. That's what we are.
I think we all do in our own right. What I truly love about Alex is he has been able to create a podcast that engages the imagination and all of our felt senses, and yet still touches upon like the truth in a really unique and interesting way. And so yeah, I think all of us, our mission done differently and shared differently is to impress upon through love and lived experience ourselves that we are love. We are love. And being able to look past the veil of an individual and see that pure essence. I know for me personally, working in addiction and mental health, there's a lot, that person sees about themselves that I can immediately dismiss and go to the essence of them in love. And
Hmm.
that's why I love this show too.
Yeah, and I'd say for ourselves, it is useful to when those negative emotions come up to actually deal with them, to experience them, to face them, to fully immerse ourselves in them and see where they're coming from. So just pushing them aside and saying, "No, I'm enlightened," isn't always that helpful. At least for me, like if I'm experiencing those emotions, it's good to be in the moment with them. Like, say I'm going for a walk through nature and all this stuff from the ego's coming up. It's useful to go and like kind of wrestle with it for a while, struggle with it for a while to experience what it has to give. And one technique I've learned from like gurus and people like that is to fully feel those emotions, to fully feel that stuff, and then once you've done that, gone through it, you can then let it go to source or God or whatever you deal with, your higher self, and then you can dissolve it. But, just ignoring it won't do it.
Can I ask you something though, Alex
Yeah.
and Yanko, because if you look at Radaviv and I understand this is illusion, right? But let's just, for the sake of our audience and different levels of consciousness, women, right, have been kind of given, oh, you're a woman, so you get to be emotional, right? Oh, you can cry, you're a woman. Men have naturally over time been conditioned to not show emotion. How have you been able to, like, Was there a pivotal moment where you're just like, I'm gonna feel my feelings? Was it a teacher, or and how do you express your emotion? Are you able to do it publicly, or do you still do it privately? I'm just curious.
Well, the real dark, heavy stuff, I don't necessarily express all that publicly, like screaming at crowds of people or anything like that. But honestly, that whole men are not emotional thing, I was not raised that way.
Oh,
I
that
was
is
raised by a mother who was very open with having me share my emotions, and a father who was maybe not as emotional, but showed me the more skeptical side of things to question everything. And I think men who are stuck in that men are not emotional kind of thing got to move past those patterns. And I think a part of spiritual growth is realizing what unconscious patterns are driving us, what habits and behaviors and beliefs are maybe creating our day-to-day reality, facing those and moving past them. And so, yeah, men have as many emotions as women have. Just as women are just as intelligent as men are, that kind of thing. And really, once you're deep into that spiritual journey, you might realize that you are not your gender, you are not your the sex of your birth or whatever, and you just are. You are you. You exist, and you're past all that stuff. And so, emotions, yeah, got to feel those emotions.
Thank
That's
you so
okay.
much. What about you, Yanko? Because you grew up in Bulgaria, and I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta be tough. You gotta be man and hold it in and not show any weakness because you have to be tough. that's that's how we're usually raised up there. Because if you show like you're weak or well, emotions are making you weak, and that's how you usually programmed. And I came to realize that. I didn't even know the different flavors of emotions that exist. They were
Mm,
just like, this is it. I'm feeling pissed or whatever, and we have like a handful of emotions that I can describe, and that's about it. Until I actually started to go deeper into like, what is this feeling? Where is it coming from? Who's the feeling or of the feeling? Am I feeling it or is just the feeling? Where is it in the body? Um, is it surrounding or surrounding around me? Am I feeling somebody else's emotions? Um, so yeah, and now I just kind of express whatever comes in the moment. It doesn't matter like what's going on. Like I can be in the park and have like a blissful emotion because I see somebody interacting that brings me joy or whatever, and then there will be tears coming down my eyes.
yeah.
Um, but it's not like a cathartic emotions because there's that kind of emotions too that can happen if you trigger something like really deep that you've been suppressing, then you can actually your body can have like a huge release. It's not just gonna be like, little tears or this and that. You can just go full on.
Really.
And then from my own experience in working with clients with hypnosis, when the emotion comes in, all the logic is out of the window. Like even you can get to a point where the ego is there, like your personality is observing it. It says no, but you're in the emotion. It's happening. Like there's no coming back. um, so yeah, emotions are interesting. Like thoughts, you can have whole discussion about emotions that can keep going and going. But does that answer your question?
It does. It's super helpful, and thank you both for sharing that, because I think we need to have this conversation more and more, because well, I absolutely agree with you guys that we really don't identify as a gender. That's how most of the world experiences their reality right now, right? And being able to put voice to your experiences might might plant a seed to give other people, both men and women, because I have to tell you, I operated from a very masculine energy, particularly in the corporate world for a long time, and I operated much like everybody else. You don't feel your feelings, you just show up and you get the job done and you dig in. But something that was coming up for me when you were sharing, Yanko, and is important to touch upon, is you're right. When we're in emotions, it slows down our response to our cognitive thinking. We're not even thinking logically and ego at that point. And I think that speaks to the importance of self-care practices, breath work, being able to do yoga or exercise or color or say whatever really suits your fancy. But I find that if I'm in ego, I'm responding to something emotionally. I'm going to give you a real life example. My daughter's texting me on Friday. They have an active shooter lockdown. They don't know what's happening. They think there's an active shooter in the building. So immediately, right, I'm a mother. So ego kicks in, emotion, fear. But because I have those self care practices that I practice every single day, breath work, my spiritual practices, whatever, I instantly, like naturally, because I've done it so long, kicked into breath work, which prevented me from making like a reactionary choice. And then I was able to, okay, now my job is to hold space for my daughter who's in this experience in a place from love, not fear. So, and being able to then, okay, babe, we can't control anything in this situation other than your response to it. So let's go through breath work, right? And so I'm sharing this with you guys because I want, if you don't mind, to share how practices, whatever they have been for you, have played a role in your ability to stay aware, and then also to regulate yourself when you are having an emotional response so that you are able to make a choice from a place of love rather than reaction, or from my understanding, fear.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say practices are key. Some kind of practice you do is important. I think breath work can be very powerful. A meditation, if that works for you, or even for some people, plant medicines. I'm not saying do psilocybin mushrooms every day, but some kind of plant medicines can be helpful too. Say a legal one, I found something called hape, a more tobacco-based plant medicine. It can help you get into a very good flow state, get you very aware and grounded of your own
Yes.
stuff for a brief amount of time, and you can integrate that with a medicine, or a meditation, I mean. And I've also found something like a candle gazing exercise can be very helpful to get you in that moment.
Cheers.
Sorry, I heard something.
No, you're good.
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
And also, I found the most valuable practice for me for observing my own stuff has been dream work. Ever since I've been a little kid, and particularly getting into adulthood, dream journaling and kind of seeing what my dreams have to tell me about my inner state can be very useful. You can find various messages in there. Through the dreams, you could see parts of your subconscious mind that aren't normally that visible to you on a waking day-to-day basis. So, like, any way that helps you observe yourself, whether it's through meditation or dream work, plant medicine, whatever, way to step outside your day-to-day patterns, observe those patterns, become aware of those patterns, and ultimately get above them. It can be helpful.
Yeah, there's very many ways you can do different things like that. You can, like you said, use plant medicine um, and it doesn't even have to be plant medicine. Anything that'll get you out of your regular day-to-day operation. Like for example, right now I'm just having a cup of tea, which is giving me the aroma. Like I can just smell the scents, and that kind of grounds me and puts me down
Hmm.
on like the present. So it doesn't have to be anything like, whoa,
Exactly.
simple things do the
Tea
work
is
too.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I would say I want to add to that because you're right. Like we are so individualized, which is why I'm not a fan of programs because there's not one thing that's going to work for each of us, right?
Nah.
Whatever it is, I tell people plug and play. Keep practicing to find the thing and then do it consistently because again, going back to a moment when you have I mean, we don't have control anyway, but if you're in an active shooter situation and you can't get out of it, what's the one thing you can do? You can focus on your internal response to that. And the way in which you are able to get to that place is through consistent practice of the thing that you find works best for you. And I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this, Radaviv.
Well, to me, one of the best medicine is to really have a relationship with your heart.
Mm,
You know, because I'm a very feeling person. And really, and it's not because I'm expecting everyone to be a feeling person like me or like you, Kerry. But know where your heart is. Feel it from there, and we'll know whether we are afraid because we heard of something and we're feeling that in our heart because that's where the emotion is. And if we're afraid, like let's say your daughter told you about this, immediately it's disturbing. And if we feel it down here, let us shed something so that it can be released and gone. If we don't, it gets stuck here and it becomes a bigger concern. It piles up and something else happened that triggered that emotion and it gets in and this is and it gets into this bigger space. And this is what happened with us. I'm going back to our childhood traumas and wounds. Got stuck. They didn't know what to do with it. Piles up and it piles up. And we try we get into addiction because we don't want to remember all those things. We get into all kinds of distractions because there's a sense of not being. There's a sense of we're not good enough or something. The way we were trained. But we got to embrace that part of ourselves. That's how I look at it.
yeah. And surround ourselves with people who will embrace that too. I'm going to share another story. So this
Ooh.
really kind gentleman saw my request to have my skull rebranded. And this has been in the works for 2 years. So we've been going back and forth. He's using his marketing agency, and it's been cumbersome because it needs to come needs to be beautiful. So yesterday, I was like, "Hey, if this gets to be too much, no worries. I'm super grateful for your time and support with this regardless." And he immediately was like, "Why would you play small and even consider saying that? If I want to offer my help, you're dismissing yourself by saying if it gets too much and like I trust you to recognize if it does get too much for me, then you'll respect my decision then." And I loved that. I was like, well, first off, I was on the turf at working out and I caught that before he could say it. But for somebody to be able to see that and then say it, put voice to it to me is a gift. And I think it's why I love this space so much because we're all people who understand it is our internal work, but sometimes we need another person to be like, "Hey, you missed that one, or look at that." And that's something else I would encourage everybody to look at is who are the people that you're hanging around with, and I'm going to tie that into I was talking to the two clients in the past week. Both of them keep telling me there's something wrong with them. that, and telling me how the people in their life are constantly frustrated with them for what's wrong with them. And I said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just surrounding yourself with people who are convincing you that there's something wrong with you because that's your habit and that's what you know. And so, what I would offer all of you guys is look at who it is you're around, and are they breathing life into you or are they tearing you down? Because that gentleman yesterday, Jason, was able to breathe life in me by just calling me out on an egoic behavior or an old pattern of conditioning. And then, but in past, I would have people who would tear me down and say, oh, Kerri, you're crazy, you want too much, you whatever, whatever. So as I shifted who I had in my space, and that's, really important too. And so, I would love for you guys to share your thoughts on that as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think who we surround ourselves with is pretty vital. You know, I think for a lot of people, we tend to have friendships and relationships that maybe formed unconsciously over the years. Like we have our old friends from childhood, many of them stick around. And maybe we don't always have a lot in common with them anymore. And yes, those friendships can evolve, but they don't always evolve. And a lot of times we have these relationships that we kind of formed unconsciously. Like these people were just kind of drawn into our lives due to common interests at the time, and we might feel like we need to spend time with them just out of obligation or because these are our people, and maybe sometimes they're not the best for us anymore. And I think it might be vital to observe your relationships consciously and see how they suit you, how they don't suit you anymore. And yeah, some of them can grow with us. We can have those people grow with us and help each other to really evolve and change. Other times, you might have to discard that relationship if it becomes toxic, or if you realize, oh, yeah, I have nothing in common with this person anymore, and nothing's gonna change. And then you don't have to cut them off meanly unless they're really toxic for you. But it's important to surround yourself with people that help you grow, help you become aware of yourself, and that are good for you.
Yeah, and just to circle back, and I'm willing to have that tough conversation with you, which I'm passionate about, right? Jason being able to see that and say that was a beautiful gift to me. And I think, part of a healthy relationship is being able to deliver a message of love, but may not always, I think so often we filter ourselves thinking that we're being loving, and sometimes we just need to be reminded, hey, you're playing small and I see you, and you're worthy of taking up space and being loved and supported in whatever way
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff it's not even like in a level where somebody can comprehend unless they're actually like looking through their day-to-day operation and how they're interacting with people and what they do. Um, and at least through my own um, observation, that I see that there's things that I'm not like aware of. Like, maybe there was different roles we were fulfilling for each other, and that's why everything was kind of balanced. You needed to be with that person so that person can reflect back to you whatever you needed at the moment, or the other way around. So it's I would say like self observation will be like a good starting point.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'll answer. Yeah, because I have to leave soon. I have another appointment. I have another thing. So, um, there are two things I think that happens when relationships with people. One of them is a sense of need, And the other one is when we have a it's a frequency connection without further. Your heart knows it. There's a connection that you can't explain why. Like sometimes we meet people and we like some more than we like some. Nothing wrong with
Hmm. Did everyone
Yeah,
else lose Radavi for a moment?
We lost Radaviv.
Okay.
yeah, we did.
But
Hmm.
to tie into what she's saying, she's spot on in that, I mean, Yanko and I talked for 2 seconds and I'm like, oh, that's my soul family. I mean,
Nice.
and it's just being able to, and here's the other thing. I think we have those connections, but then go ahead, Radaviv.
Yeah, we lost her
Karen
again.
lost her again. Something's going on.
Yep. She's meant for that other call.
Hmm.
But then we convince ourselves that it's not real. I've been guilty of that myself. I'm like, oh, that's nah, and my thinking mind is like, no, that's now I'm just like, if I'm connected, I'm connected, and it's as simple as that. And I just and then if on the contrary, I'm not aligned with somebody, I don't make up a story about it. I just don't engage.
Yeah, you're either aligned or you're not aligned
Yeah.
until you're not.
And
No, you're
okay.
here. We see
Hmm.
you.
Do
and
you wanna finish your thought or you wanna say goodbye?
oh, I finished my thoughts, but I
Okay,
think I really need to leave. How do I
we'll
get
take you
out?
off. Go ahead.
I
Bye.
Where do I hit? Because
Hmm. Hmm.
You close the window. And like that, we're gone.
Yeah. Good stuff, though.
It, it
And that,
is. Go
and that
ahead.
rem- that reminds me that we can make connections with people, and they don't have to be always forever connections. We could connect with somebody for maybe a month, a few months in our lives, and learn a lot from each other. And this could be a brief friendship where we kind of maybe see parts of ourselves we wouldn't normally look at. It could be, maybe you date somebody briefly and learn some key thing, and doesn't mean they got to be with you your whole life. And sometimes it's okay that they're not, and we could learn from a lot of people. Even like meet a stranger on the train or something, have a bit of a talk, and have a realization, and then we move on and never see them again, and that's okay too.
That's right.
That leads me to a story that
Mm.
actually for a while I was really embarrassed about it until I realized it was such a beautiful gift. I ended up in a really deep connection with a gentleman in jail who murdered his wife. But he was super spiritual and he helped me grow immensely. And he also helped me recognize how much I grew because he was in an old pattern of behavior of control and fear. But I was like, when I think about it, I don't know that I would be as aligned in love as I am had I not had that connection with him. And so it doesn't have to look or be a certain way. And when you don't limit yourself to who it is you connect with, obviously make smart choices, right? But when you're connected, you're connected, and there is always a gift in that connection regardless of the frame in which that connection comes.
Yeah, I mean, earlier this year, I started having phone conversations with this woman I got connected to, and we met once in person, and we had very long conversations. But it was clear that, like, in many ways, she could probably be very toxic of a person, and was struggling with a lot of stuff that wouldn't have made for a good, like, romantic relationship or something like that. But I think through dealing with her and through having all these conversations, it was kind of therapeutic and helped me to see where I was at on my path. And, I think we did help each other through those conversations, even if it didn't result in any kind of long term relationship. It was very valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a reminder of like, oh, okay, I know why. Yes. And
Yeah.
sometimes it could be a stranger on the bus or anything. You'd be like, oh, okay, thank you. You'd be
Yep.
like, well, why? I'm like, you don't know. Like, I just had a aha moment, so thank you.
Yeah, even if you meet somebody who's a jerk and they're really annoying and
Exactly.
toxic, like
I
you can
know.
maybe see that, like, oh, that showed me what I'm not.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So true.
Contrast.
Well, all
Contrast.
right.
You need
With
that.
4 minutes to go, you lovely gentlemen, is there anything that you want to impart on the audience that we haven't touched upon, or just anything you want to share, when your season's coming out, Alex, or before we jump?
Well, let's see. When my season's coming out, well, right now I'm almost done with the recording process for season 3. So I'd expect season 3 to be released sometime in the next couple months. I'll put out more announcements through these things through social media when it gets closer. And yes, Kerri, I do want to do one of your interviews. Sounds awesome. And yeah, so almost done with the recording process. Going to start mixing it all up with the background music and stuff soon.
Love that. What about you, Yanko?
That's very exciting. I'm just vibing with you guys and feeling the excitement. I'm really excited about the whole thing, and I'm thinking all kinds of things like you're mixing it and like releasing a little, maybe teasers here and there. This is gonna be awesome, man.
I'm trying to get back to social media more and post more. Just like a couple months, I've just not been that great on social media.
Just go with the flow. I'm kind of the same. I have like a weeks where I do and then I don't. I come across the one with the cicada you did. That was like really funny to watch.
Yeah, cicada meditation. Was great.
Yeah, but I don't have anything to pass to our audience. I want to thank everyone that spent the time to watch us and vibe with us, even live or on the recording. And I always like to remind our audience that we're doing this for no particular reason, and you can get in touch with us if you feel like it. If you just want to ask anything or tell us something that we don't know or share a story or share a video or anything, that'll be really appreciated.
Yeah, I totally uh I second what Yanko's saying, and I think, I'm always going to remind you, and I think this is why I just absolutely love Alex. He reminds me that it really is fun. Like, this experience is fun, and I know at times it can feel really daunting and hard, but when you can find the humor and the play and the laughter amidst that hard, it makes everything more palatable, even in the loss and the grief and the learning and the expansion. So if you haven't already, find ways to play today, tomorrow, and every day in your life. And just thank you all so much for being here. We also are on podcast platforms. So if you can't watch every week, but you're really enthralled with our content, please tap into that space. And until next time, keep showing up, keep being curious, and keep laughing well.
Take care, everybody.